Hello everyone and welcome into our latest live video. Today it is the 27th of February 2026 and my name is CareyHolzman. We're just one more day of February and then we're honored and on into the march towards summer in March. And wow, we're already hitting the mid 90-degree Fahrenheit days here in Phoenix. So yesterday, today, tomorrow it's going to be way too hot this early in the year, but it should cool back down about 8 or 9 degrees next week. So summer's not here yet, and just a little early for those temps in February. However, yeah, people's air conditionings their systems are starting to turn on now here in Phoenix, starting yesterday. And it's a little uncomfortable to be in the house just with windows open. It's already gotten too hot for that. But hopefully you guys are having a proper winter and enjoying the last couple days here of February. And today what we have for you is a review that may seem a little confusing because it was for us. In front of me I have the Kamrui E3B mini PC. And some of you who are regulars to this channel might say, didn't you already do that one like a year ago? I'd say yes, and you have a very good memory. Back in March of 25, we did exactly that, a review of the Kamrui E3B. To which you might reply, so you're just going to do the same one again? Well, you know, with things being the way they are in the industry, with the RAM and storage shortages and lack of innovation in the processor world, Wi-Fi is kind of stagnant. Everything's just kind of stalled. So how do manufacturers, if you were a mini PC manufacturer, how could you think outside of the box to take something you've already got and repurpose it so that you can redraw customer interest without, you know, the extreme cost of innovation or retooling a factory or a complete new design, which, you know, the goal is, okay, let's say you're a bakery and you make bagels, breads. What do you do with the bagels and the breads that don't sell by the end of the day? Do you just throw them away, or is there something else you can do with them? Can we make croutons? Can we turn them into dog treats? Is there something else that can repurpose the leftovers, at the same time avoid waste and bring in extra income at virtually no cost? And I think that the mini PC manufacturers and even some regular PC manufacturers are starting to innovate in this way, where they're taking something old and making it new again through some very minor enhancements. So what we have here, in my opinion, is not an E3B. This would be what I would call an E3C or an E3D or an E3B version 2, because it does add a little bit of confusion if you have varying configurations of the exact same model number. It's not unlike Ford or GM to take a regular car and just put new body panels and features on it and put it into their Cadillac line, or put it into their Lincoln line, or for Toyota to put that into their Infinity. Is it Infinia? Lexus. Nissan has Infinity. In other words, they're all the same cars. They just kind of make a few minor changes to maybe some of the styling and then a couple of features, maybe suspension and things. And essentially the whole engineering groundwork of the car is the same as the cheaper other name, you know, regular brand name version of it. And what we're seeing here is equivalently very identical to that, except without changing the name. I can understand how this could create some consumer confusion, and we're going to talk to you about that. But I want you to understand why it's happening, why it makes sense, and how they can still be offering brand new models. This is a brand new model for still around that $300 price tag, when you and I both know just getting the RAM and storage these days, pretty easy to spend $300. In fact, RAM and storage right now make up about 35% of the total cost of your computer if you want to build one today. So with that in mind, I suspect we're going to be seeing more like this where it's a similar model that looks like something we reviewed before. Hopefully manufacturers will take the time to change the model name, even by a little bit, because by carrying the same model name, that means you as a consumer need to pay attention to which one you're buying. If they're all named the same, but they're all equipped differently and at different prices, then it's up to you to read through those details. So we're going to guide you through that today. But first, let me say hello to everyone joining us in our chat room. Of course, our friends Buster and Margaine submitted an Amazon gift card prior to the show starting, and they do that in lieu of a super chat. And we thank you guys so much for that. And thank you to all the members for supporting us here. As we see this industry stall and struggle, it'll be interesting to see if it gets back up on its feet here by around this time next year. Hopefully sooner, or if it putters out and goes away and these were all just good memories. The computers, of course, used in business, they're selling like hotcakes. We've got no difference in the business world. Computers are still being sold with the same, not higher, not lower number of systems being sold. The necessity for businesses to conduct business is the same today as it was last year. They still need employees, they still need customers, and this is really just something that affects the home user. And let's face it, YouTube is mostly watched by home users. It's not many businesses that watch YouTube. So in knowing our audience here on this platform, we try to get content that is what we feel is more in tune to your interests, what affects you. Because if you don't work in the industry, again, we do have broadcasts for that, for industry-related broadcasts, but they don't get the number of views. Typically, when you're in the industry, you don't need something like YouTube. You'll be told what to do. You'll be given policies and procedures, and you're not asked what your thoughts are. You're there to do a job. So if you don't like it, you quit. You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot to discuss on the business side of things, unless you're a part of the business that's deciding the IT infrastructure. In which case, again, there are YouTube channels specifying and specializing in what these different hardware level components are for businesses, for things like virtual LANs and segregated networks and things of that nature. Wi-Fi that can address 5,000 rooms of a hotel without having any issues with IP, or without having any issues with signal strength, or customers seeing each other data, or protecting your own database from your own customers. Things that wouldn't happen to home users that are just generally, again, the most of the YouTube viewers. But we do have that content as well. We just don't have as much of it for those reasons. So that being said, today we're looking at a typical consumer-based or consumer-designed computer. And the idea is to provide a consumer with a reliable, affordable machine, especially in a time where building one is extraordinarily expensive, and RAM and storage prices, GPU prices, they're outrageous right now. And it'll pass. The weather changes. This is no different than a weather change. If it starts raining for the next 8 days, we'll just have to find something else to do until the rain clears before we go outside and do our outside plans, or we do it outside in the rain. That's it. We have no control over it. So the challenge for you is to learn how to make it work with you, so that you're not feeling depressed or victimized. Just appreciate the beauty of the world we live in and the chaotic messiness, and learn how to grab that with both reins and have control of it. It's quite exhilarating and quite challenging, but many people choose to just go online and whine. I guess that's getting something done. I don't know what it is, but maybe in their mind they think they've done something, but that still doesn't affect the rain. So I'd rather see people, pick up a book, find something else to do for a while if you want to wait the rain out. It won't rain forever, and we'll look back on these times, and just like we did in COVID, and getting toilet paper, and it's really not that big of a deal. But that being said, let's say hello to everybody here in the chat. John Williams says hello, and there's John F9M31. David Graham and Andy Kane saying hello, and Jonathan 1583 says hello. There's Dustin Fuller and our friend Buster. Peter Laycock and Ben Laird, also from Scotland, joining us. I also see Kelly saying hello. And Jim Kenny joins us and says hello. I also see Bajan Guy. Jim Kenny said, I switched from 3 gig upload and down to 100 gig upload, 100 meg upload and 400 meg down. I cannot see a difference. Yeah, if you're not using it, you can get a car with 700 horsepower or a car with 200 horsepower, and you may not notice the difference depending on how you drive. Absolutely. Let's see. Gary Bickle says hello. There's Charlie Purdy joining us, and Mark Baggett saying hello. Becca Cameron says hello. Horryman says, don't let the magic smoke out. We try our best. Bike Man joins us. Planet Cryos, hey, there he is with the $2 super chat. He says, hello, have a good show. Hey, Planet Cryos, good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Becca Cameron said, I'm starting to want one of those mini PCs for my bedroom as a streaming type alternative. Oh, they're very, very good at accomplishing that for sure. Essential Working Too Hard joins us here in the chat and says hello. All right. I think I got everybody. I hope I did. And it's good to see you all here today. Let me go back over to, there I am. I was wondering where my channel went. And let me show you a year ago what we were looking at. Let me pull up, let's see, how do I want to do this? Let's go here and let's go to my window capture. Is that going to work? Yeah, there I am. Okay, so down here it says the Kamrui E3B Mini, and this was a two-parter. This featured a Ryzen 7, and I think down here we have the specs. Yeah, AMD Ryzen 7 5875U. And we did this video on March 19th, 2025, so nearly 1 year ago, just a couple weeks away. Could have been, if I had put this off, we could have done it right on the anniversary. And what they've done here, what it appears that Kamrui has done, is they've taken the exact same case, the same tooling, the same factory, the same engineering plans, and made a very minor change to it by changing out the CPU with something a bit more modernized, a bit more efficient. So you'll notice that on Kamrui's website, which we have the link for here in our video notes, the Kamrui E3B is available in several different processor types. The Ryzen 7730U, 7735HS, 7430U, and then there's one called the V2748. So now this one is pretty unusual in that it doesn't follow the same convention of naming that we're accustomed to from AMD. You may not have heard of this. I know I didn't when I initially heard of it. So what I did is I quickly did some Google searching for that particular processor to get kind of an overview. And somewhere in here I have, if we pull up today's video, which is, bear with me 1 second. Under our video notes on today's video, I have a link for you if you want to read about the details. I'm not going to go through all of it today because it's a lot of technical information that many of you probably could care less about, but there's a handful of you that do want this. So for those of you who want it, when I scroll down here, Next to the CPU listed under the specifications, we have a link that's going to Tech Power Up. And Tech Power Up's a website that does reviews on tech, right? It could be just the chip, it could be a whole machine. And if we jump over there, you can learn about the V2748. So this is an 8-core, 16-thread, only 35 watts. Goes from 2.9 gig to 4.25 in boost mode. And its socket doesn't matter because that's all soldered down mobile chips. And what this is sort of it's an upgrade from prior CPUs that we've seen on this model, the E3B, that should resolve some of the issues that the particular processor they're using was known for. I think there were some heat-related issues or some struggles to keep it cool, and a couple other advancements. It's not like a major change, but it's definitely an improvement and a step in the right direction, which should make this the desirable version of the E3B. Compared to the others, if you're not sure which one is the best one, I would say this one, the latest V2748 chip. Now, when I say latest, you should also know that this chip came out back around November of 2020. So another way that these manufacturers are saving money is to not get you the latest and greatest tech, because you're going to spend a lot more for it. So the reason you may not be seeing a big difference in price jump that you keep hearing about, how expensive everything is getting, that is mostly referring to brand new, just released technology. That's always your most expensive. It always has been, it always will be. So if we could go back and use technology that's a couple of years old, it's people aren't clamoring after it since it's no longer the latest and greatest. Everybody just, generally speaking, especially the people that are most vocal on the internet, they don't give a rat's behind about value. They don't care what it costs or how much time they have to invest if it means they're going to be first. And that is a big priority for a lot of people on the internet. They only want to be first. Now, for the rest of us that aren't rich, super wealthy, and have a bunch of time on our hands, that we have the affordability to be able to have the luxury of always being first and always opening our wallet, what are the rest of us supposed to do? The thing is there's so many people that want to be first online, it would be easy to conclude there is nobody else talking about value, talking about being reasonable and prudent. It's pretty much all one voice, all talking about one thing as if there was no other option. And I'm here to present you with other options that are far more reasonable. And I'm also going to explain how is it possible, right? If you've got a chip that came out in 2020, it starts to make sense. Okay, this machine also, you're looking at 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig storage. That's bringing down the price quite a bit. Last year's model, I think, was a terabyte of storage and 32 gigs of RAM, if I'm not mistaken. However, with the benefit of an improved processor that's more energy efficient, doesn't have the heat challenges, you may end up actually getting a better, more desirable, more useful, practical PC for effectively what it cost last year. There's maybe a $10 difference between last year and this year. Now, if you go, like, wait a minute, didn't RAM prices like triple? Didn't SSD prices double? Yeah, they did. So then how is this only $10 difference? This is how they do it. So you're not getting as much RAM or as much storage as last year, but they're trying as much as they can to keep that price differential minimized so as to the most typical end user who neither could care less about being first when it's 3 times more money, but would rather just have something new under warranty that's, let's face it, reliable and fast, right? If you want to be more demanding and more intolerant, as long as you've got the wallet to pay for your attitude, have at it. But I don't have a wallet that enables me to be that demanding and intolerant. So I have 2 choices. I can either wait, sacrifice what I want today until the prices for the higher end stuff comes down at some point in next year, maybe. or I can have today a compromise that keeps the price pretty much where it was last year. And while it delivers less on the storage and the RAM by default, you can always add to it. And the processor is actually better than the one from last year. So overall, it's a really ingenious marketing move to continue to innovate when there's nothing new coming out. So you have to use what's available in a different way to try to achieve whatever your goal is. And here the goal is going to be to keep the price down. But at the same time, you don't want to keep the price down by selling you an old, outdated processor that is only going to have 2 years of life left on it, right? So somewhere in between those two extremes, we end up with this. And it makes perfect sense. It's a very logical thing to do where there's not a lot of investment in retooling a factory or in redesigning. All that's going to cost more money. Redesign the case, somebody's going to pay for that. And that means it's going to be added to the price. So anything that they can do to reuse what they already have, but at the same time innovate, but innovate in smaller steps. Don't make these grandiose changes all at once, or you're going to get a grandiose price to pay for it all. And if you can afford that, I mean, have at it. I mean, we all wish we were you. But for the rest of us, are machines like this worth considering? I mean, at the end of the day, that's your decision. I can't make that decision for you. And what I can do is give you an idea what to expect, what's included in the box. We'll take a look at what version of Windows is installed, what kind of, do we have an NVMe or a SATA drive? I don't know yet. So we do these videos live, unscripted and unrehearsed, so we can go through this educational discovery process together. Too many people on the internet, they don't want to learn. They don't want to think for themselves. They want you to tell them what they should buy, and they want to go through life as though they're getting away with something. But not thinking for yourself and not being held accountable for your own decisions, that's its own punishment. So people who choose to do that are welcome to find YouTube shorts and things on this build, because to me, you're just damaging yourself. But when you take an active participatory role in the outcome of your own life by understanding the pros and cons of the decisions you make, what's the right decision for you may not be right for anybody else on the planet. Nobody can tell you you're wrong. And you are the only one who lives with your consequences, and you are the only one to congratulate or blame should that you make a mistake or an error in judgment. But if you just want to listen to people like myself tell you what you should buy and what you should do, I have a dog already. So anyway, these videos may not be for you if that's what you're looking for. But I know that everybody joining us in the chat knows exactly what's in store, and we appreciate having each and every one of you here so that we can go through this experience together. There's no reason to selfishly have to learn things on your own when we can share it with the entire community who would like to take advantage of this little road trip that we're on through experience, as though you had the experience yourself without any of the financial or emotional investment. And if at the end of it, it looks like it was a great ride, you might want to do it on your own, or you might not want to. We've got a discount code in this for you as well, and that's in the video description below today's video. So if you decide that it's right for you, have at it. If you decide it's not right for you, that's, you know, it's fine with me either way. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people want to be sold stuff. They enjoy that. I don't enjoy pressuring people. So we're just going to take a look at it in an open and honest way and point out as much as we can about what's good and what's bad. We don't focus on just one or the other. I try and find a little balance between where things come up short and where things are impressive. So that's what you should expect from me on this channel. And if you'd like to see more of that, I'm not aware of any other YouTube channel that does this. And we are uniquely here because we are only sponsored by our viewers. So we can't thank our viewers enough for enabling us to be able to do these unbiased reviews from a real working computer technician in the industry, not an enthusiast who's just around playing games. Not that there's anything wrong with it. There's just too much of it on YouTube. Guys like me, there's a handful of us out there. Good luck finding us. All right. let's get this thing unboxed and let's see what's included in the box. I imagine it's going to be very, very similar from outside perspective. It's only until we dig in that we notice the change in processor, and when we fire it up, notice any change in performance or noise. So let me go to camera 2. Here we go. I guess I'll put that right there. Okay, so what we're looking at is a pretty basic setup that includes an HDMI cable and a power cable. This is a 3-prong laptop style power cable that goes into a laptop style power brick. And the power brick is a barrel connector, and it does not have the name of the company on it. So if I were you, I would label this as Kamrui E3B or something, just in case these two things get separated in the years ahead, maybe a move, and you know, you're emptying boxes and you've got power bricks and you've got other electronic devices. If you plug this into the wrong thing, you could permanently damage the thing you've plugged into it that it wasn't supposed to be plugged into. Label maker, a Sharpie marker that's silver will write on that very easily, but otherwise it's up to you. This is the VESA mounting bracket if you want to mount this mini PC up against a wall, underneath a desk, or even behind your monitor. That is done with this bracket, which also uses these screws. And that's pretty much all you're getting, along with the mini PC itself. So what I'm going to do is just clear a little room here on the bench because I don't need any of that. And I'll put this away. Just put all that back in the box like it was. And the little foam piece. And then, of course, we have some very minimal documentation, which I'll throw back in there for now. And then we'll get this out of the way. When you receive your mini PC, a lot of times, pretty much every time, they should have some kind of a protective wrap. This could be a paper, it could be a plastic. If you were to open one of these, or you watch a video of somebody unboxing and they pull something out of the box that has no wrap around it, then they've likely already unboxed it, and what you're watching is not real. It's a recreation or a dramatization of the unboxing event. Or if you receive a unit that's supposed to be new and what you receive does not have the plastic wrap, it sounds like you may have gotten a returned item. So just be aware of that and decide how you want to respond to that. But this is what a typical mini PC will look like when it's actually brand new and really being unboxed for the first time. Just want you to be aware when you're being lied to or deceived or potentially being ripped off, right? Somebody sent you a used item and charged you for a new one. You might be okay with it, but you should at least be aware of it. And those are things you look for. And they're the little details I always cover in my videos. And if for any reason I'm taking something out that doesn't have the plastic, because I've already opened it, I always fully disclose that in the video. Or I act surprised that, hey, that's surprising it didn't have plastic there. Like, I'll make something about it because that's unusual, and we want to make sure that that's normal for that particular brand or model. Right? There's no rule that says they have to do it this way. It's just kind of an unspoken rule, if you will. Let me take this up to the camera and let me show you what it looks like up close. So what we've got here is pretty much, I think, the same exact case as what we looked at last March. I do believe everything on the front is the same. I don't know what this blue is right here. Oh, there must have been just something on there. We also have nothing on the sides. We have the back that contains our USB and the warning label with regards to not plugging this in until after we've set it up. Don't plug it into your internet. In fact, don't plug in your printer, don't plug anything but your keyboard, mouse, monitor, and then go through the first power on. After you get to the desktop, go ahead and plug your internet in, download your updates, reboot, do that again, reboot, and then when you're finally done with all of that, then start plugging in printers and other things, and that way you'll have a much easier time with your setup. Down below, it looks like screws are going to be hidden underneath, I'm guessing. Or is this the one that the top just came off on? Sometimes these mini PC manufacturers, they keep you guessing. That top does not want to come off, so I'm going to guess we have to come in from the bottom, and these rubber feet then would have to be removed, and then that will expose screws, and then this whole bottom will lift out. I do want to just double check that though, because I thought the lid just popped off on the Kamrui, but you know, I see so many of these mini PCs, they all kind of blend into one now. And the problem that I have is I don't want to break the lid off. So if I get a hand underneath here and I start to pull on it, I just want to see if it wants to give at all. Because if it's intended to simply be removed, then with a reasonable amount of pressure, it should pop open. If I'm putting on too much pressure, it'll crack and it'll break, and you should know your own strength to know you don't want to go that far. If we just take the bottom off of this just to see, because now I'm curious, really, let's open up. Well, rather, let's take off these feet, and yeah, those are just rubber feet that are stuck with an adhesive. And what sucks about the adhesive is it loses its adhesive properties every single time you remove it and put it back on. It's weaker and it doesn't stay on as strong as it did before. They don't give you any spare feet here, and it sure would be nice if these feet even just had holes drilled in the middle of them, so you could get to the screws with never having to potentially rip, tear, or damage the adhesive when constantly getting in and out of it. Now, I think most people that order these will never open them up. Those who do would probably be rewatching a video like this. But I am kind of curious what they did on the inside here, and that this does in fact open from the bottom, not the top. So let's just see what that screwdriver bit is too big. Yeah, let's wait and see what's in store for us here. Those are some pretty shallow screws. I wasn't expecting them to be that short. We can go close up on that. Now, you do need to be careful with these mini PCs, as many of them have fans and antenna attached to the bottom plate. So you don't want to pull that plate too tough. I do see there's a little tab. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. And you could fit something like a little guitar pick or a spudger, and that's intended for you to get right into that slot, go down, and then lift up. And you'll notice when I do that, the unit starts to come up on one side only. And just with my finger, if I can get a finger under there, it just pulls the lid up cleanly. There's no cables, there's no wires to worry about. But what we do have is a giant heat sink, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. What this is doing is this is giving your RAM and your storage a place to dissipate heat, which is a nice addition. And it adds a little bit of weight to the mini PC, which makes it feel a little bit better quality. right? Because if you were to take this piece out, you would definitely reduce the weight of the machine by a little bit, and it might feel more chintzy or more like a child's toy the lighter it is. But, you know, that's a psychological thing. But it does serve a purpose to help dissipate heat, which again, on the prior Ryzen 7 models of this, there were some people that were struggling to keep it cool under heavy workloads. I see we've got another little place here to stick the spudging tool in. Looks like on each side. And when we lift that off, what we've got inside looks pretty much the same. It's nice that we have two places for RAM. So if you want to upgrade the RAM or double your RAM, that's very easy to access. We have a pre-installed NVMe drive. That's a 512 gig. Unfortunately, it looks like it's a SATA drive, so that's only going to be about a 530 megabyte per second drive. And then here we've got another M.2 slot right down here, and that's going to be for either an M.2 SATA or an M.2 NVMe. It'll take either one. It says right here. I'll show you what I'm looking at and how I can tell. Printed right onto the circuit board next to the connector. And that camera's not going to work. Hold on a minute. Let me switch over to the main camera again, because I have autofocus turned off camera 2. So what I'm trying to show you here is it says PCIe SATA. So either one. And then the drive they've installed for us, NETOC, I'm not sure who that is, but it does say right on the drive it is SATA. And that's going to be a bottleneck on the system, to be honest, but again, depending on what you're using it for, you may not even notice. On this side, we've got a single 16 gig DDR4 RAM module there. If I tilt this back, you'll see that yellow right there. That's the CMOS battery. And then underneath the NVMe drive, you'll see another little circuit board right there. And that is your Wi-Fi adapter with also with Bluetooth. Okay, if we want to take the NVMe out of there, just to show you what's underneath, that requires an even finer screwdriver than that one. So what do I have? Will this one work? Let's see. That one does not work either. It's a very, very small, very narrow Phillips driver with almost no point on it. But I do know that we have these tools as part of our Nanch toolkit that has a large variety of bits here. And I don't like having to put the whole screwdriver together, but I also don't like having to try 18 different screwdrivers before I find the one that works. So if I just take a quick glance here, it looks like one of these small Phillips drivers is what it's wanting. Yeah, that's exactly what it wants. And I think I want to change my glasses out to my more magnifying glasses, because now we're working with some very, very teeny tiny parts. You know, I never got into this job to be a jeweler. I never got into this job to be a plumber. But you never quite know how the technology in your career is going to change. And then you have to decide if you want to stay in your career or leave it if it's changing beyond your comfort level. Now this slot doesn't say if it's PCIe or SATA here, but there's your Wi-Fi adapter. It's a MediaTek, and again, I will bring this up to the camera so you guys can see close up what this looks like. But the bottom line is everything that's reasonably serviceable is easy to get to. So if you wanted to replace the Wi-Fi card, there you go. If you want to change or add memory, there you go. Change or add storage, there's your first slot, your second slot. I just don't know if that's SATA only or if they're both PCI SATA. I'm not quite sure on that. I'm sure some documentation will tell us, but it's neither here nor there at this point, because we will continue to use the drive they sent us to see how they intend it to run. So let's go ahead and put this back where it was. And then I want you to consider that plate that I just took off. The indentations are there for a specific purpose, to align over the hot areas or the chips that get hot, like your NVMe and your RAM, to help dissipate the heat, is what a heatsink does. So if I put this back in, right, and don't over tighten these, they just need to be snug. And we look at the underside, sometimes there's tape under there. This one has no thermal tape, I'm not sure why. And if we want to know how this goes back in, you can just kind of look and see there's like 2 NVMe type indentations, right? And then like a large, almost RAM size indentation. So my guess is that would go this way, because I can't remember how I took it out. But that looks like the logical way that would go back in. And then there are these little notches cut out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's these notches right above here, real closely. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then that prevents you from installing this any other way. It won't seat down correctly. So if we pop that bad boy down, and then we'll go ahead and put these screws back down there. And again, we don't want to over tighten anything. And I think what I'll do is we'll put the bottom on, but we'll leave the feet off and the screws off for now, in case we want to get back in there for any reason. There we go. And so you can see, very easy for us to get into that. Then the question is, which direction did this come off? I think it was, there's like a little notch right there. Oh, you know what? It's on every side. That's not helpful, Carey. Did it go on this way? Or did it go on this way? Or did it go on this way? I honestly can't remember, but I feel like with the words facing me towards the front of the unit, that probably looks about right. I'm not quite sure how important that is. I guess if it sits down, it looks like it comes up a little short here, though, if I'm honest. The only thing I would think differently is maybe I've got it backwards. Yeah, that fits a lot better with the writing facing away from me from the front of the unit. So that's probably how I took it off. Okay, so what I'll do is we'll move the rubber feet like so. And we don't want to lose any of these screws, so we'll move those over. And I think we're done with the driver. So let's get rid of the spudger. I just need a little space on my desk, so I have a little room to work. Power adapter. Plug that in here. I need a keyboard and a mouse. And we will plug that in here. Let's see. I guess it doesn't matter. I'll plug into the front just for the sake of it. Make sure these are both turned on. I need the HDMI cable to go to the streaming computer. So we'll give it video. This does have HDMI output and a DisplayPort output. And then finally, we need some power. So I'll just grab my 3-prong laptop style power cable, which are very common. I'm not going to use the one in the box because it won't be long enough for me. But I buy these on Amazon in 10-foot lengths, and they're like 10 bucks. Okay, so with that, let's turn it on. We have a power light, and then let's go over to the streaming computer. So let me turn HDMI port number 3 on, and let's see if we get a signal. Yep, there we go. I'm always curious what version of Windows we get. If it's Home, is it Pro, is it 23, 24H2? Let's find out here in just a moment as we take a look at this for the very first time together. You know, it's one thing for me to go ahead and update this off camera, but then you're just going to have to believe me when I tell you how it arrived, and I don't want to put you in the position of choosing whether or not to believe me. I would rather let's go through it slowly, the same way. I mean, unless you know a way to speed through this whole process, when you get one, I would love for you to film it live without edits and show me how long it takes you to get it set up and go through all of the updates. Because if you know a way to do reality faster than me, I would love to see your creativity and how you did that. So for now, everything I'm showing you is what you will have to do, and the amount of time it takes me to show you is pretty much how long you should expect to invest. It's a lot different from commercials. All right, let's see. We want English, United States, yeah. And then we want to do United States is our region. US is our keyboard layout, no secondary layout. We don't want to connect to the internet yet. This is very important that you're not connecting to the internet during the setup process. We accept the license agreement, and we'll give this username here. We'll just call it user. Enter with a blank password. So we go right to the desktop on boot up without any hesitation for passwords. We don't have any self-important sense of being of interest to other people in our society. We're not famous. We aren't special in that way. So I don't believe in the schizophrenia that permeates the internet nowadays, and security conscious people that nobody could care about. They don't even know you exist, being worried about what much people care about them. I know it sounds harsh, but seriously, dude, like, no one cares. If that makes you feel better, have at it, but I'm not wasting my time protecting myself against imaginary bad guys that are not out to get me because they don't even know who I am. Now, if it's ever happened to me before, well, I might have some justification, but the internet's very, very good at poisoning the minds of the viewers and putting in a toxic sense of essentially paranoia and schizophrenia. And I just don't want to embrace that attitude. I think it's not healthy. But for that reason, when we set these up, we just put them in with a username, no password. We don't use a Microsoft account because these machines aren't mine. So I wouldn't want my personal information on a machine that isn't mine. But if it is mine, I don't have any issue putting my private information on it. And I don't really feel like the normal security built in is anything more than what we all need, unless you're famous or people are out to get you, or they've already gotten you in the past. Otherwise, I guess you're just playing pretend that you're important, which isn't hurting anybody, but it's a little delusional. So we do try to keep a handle on what's reasonable for security, and we don't ignore security, but we also don't have 75 locks on the front door that will prevent you from getting out of your building when it's on fire in time to not be consumed because you locked yourself into your own cell and you're the only one that has the key. That's a tough way to live, man. But to each their own. I'm not here to condone that behavior, and I explain the reasoning all behind it. So you take that or leave it, it's up to you. Let's get back over to, let's see, first of all, what version of Windows do we have here? Let's go to System. And we have Windows 11 Pro 24H2. Again, I really don't expect to see 25H2 pre-installed on the norm until around summertime. So this is pretty typical. And we have our AMD Ryzen V2748. 16 gigs of RAM, that's all verified. I go to the yellow folder, we should be able to see our 512 gig NVMe drive installed. Right click, we could go to properties. And no, under hardware, we've got the unknown model here. It's not a model I've ever heard of before, but under general, we can see this last number here at 512. So all of this looks exactly as advertised. I don't see any bloatware. I don't see that the manufacturer has done any modifications to this at all. And if I look in the device manager, we should see everything is happy in there and there's no bangs or exclamation points in there suggesting anything's wrong. So everything out of the box is turnkey. It's ready for you to use. It does, like any new computer, need updates. So at this point, now that I've verified that everything's functional, I barely hear it, so it's very quiet. Now I can go ahead and peel this piece of tape off of here, or I can put it on Wi-Fi. But either way, I would still take the tape off, because if you leave this tape on for too long, it'll leave residue behind. You'll have to be scrubbing at it with chemicals, like any other adhesive. If it's on, for a year or two, it's not going to come off in one piece. It's going to be a real chore to get it off. So regardless if you end up using this port or not, I would remove that tape for that reason. And then let's grab our internet and let's plug it in. Again, we could go Wi-Fi, but I don't do that on a live video. And when we plug this in, on the bottom right corner of our desktop, we should see it blinking down there, and that it will obtain an IP address, which it did. It went solid. And now we're going to go to Start and Settings, and then we'll go to Windows Update and check for updates. And while it's checking for updates, I like to turn a few options on here that are my personal preference. You may wish to adopt them as your own, or you may choose not to. I have 0 optionals there, and delivery optimization I want turned off. And then the other thing I want to do is make sure the machine will not go to sleep on us while we're live on video. So I will edit. Oh, look at that. It's already ready to restart. I'm going to say not now for a second here. I want to edit my power plan. And I just want to check the power off settings. Yeah, see that 5 minutes? That's going to drive me crazy. I'll set it to 2 hours, but because the computer has no batteries, there's no reason for it to have a sleep mode. We're working on educating the public, but in the meantime, that is a very popular cause for a support call, is the computers don't wake up from sleep mode when they should have never been offered sleep mode unless they have batteries. Okay, but if you like that kind of crazy madness, I'm not telling you not to do it, but don't be surprised when you're on the phone or getting on the internet trying to figure out a problem that I'm telling you how to avoid. If you listen to me, you'll never have that problem. If you don't listen to me, you just might. Maybe you like problems. I'm assuming you don't. Now, we're going to go ahead and restart, so whatever that update was can take effect. And when the desktop comes back up, we'll go back to Windows Update again and continue with updates, which will automatically give us 25H2 as well. So while we're waiting, let me go ahead and put camera 1 in a corner here so we can kind of keep an eye on me and the machine at the same time. Okay, and let me get over to the live chat and continue saying hello to people that have just joined us here, including Phil Stodd and Andy W6AD, Dazzle555. Welcome in, guys. Hogpool joins us, and Kransvat121 says hello. Richard DeFries joining us as well. Jack Kugelmus saying hello. Thomas MacT. CB Sis says hello. Compass 360 and Edward Bass are joining us here in the chat, along with Scott Stephen Detroit. Luke Greenia joining us from Vermont. John Lewis joining us from Brazil, saying hello in our chat room. Lana Dro says hello. Anthony SF says hello. There's as well as John Rogers. Elijah Dickens. David Graham renews membership, now a member for 30 months. He said it's 60 degrees Fahrenheit here in Fox Lake, Illinois. And there's John Rogers saying hello. Sean Skinner and Eugene Hildago. All right. William Bird. Good to see all of our friends. Michael Lavelle. M. Gossman and Mike Gamer join us. Say hello. Badgerland Dan says hello. All right. So what I'm going to do is, oh, sorry, I was on the wrong screen. That says updated here. So let's go back to Windows Update. And this process is quite often not shown on most YouTube reviews, which means the reviews are omitting critical information from you, the viewer, which I personally find offensive. If you think that you're going to buy a mini PC or build a computer, and you think that you're just going to take it out of the box and you're immune from having to go through this pain in the butt, or you think that because the editor sped it up and it took 30 seconds, that it's going to take you 30 seconds, you've been lied to. So what you're seeing here is real, and it's what you should expect to emulate precisely. Depending on your speed of internet, you should accommodate the time for this on a brand new computer. It's only your identity and your data theft you're worried about, so I don't know why anybody would ever bother to mention it to you. That's called sarcasm. I would hope that if you had enough self-respect for the value of your own data, that you would want to not start settling in and getting comfortable with a new computer until after you have first updated it and evaluated that it's working like it should. Because if it's not working like it should, how else are you going to know? And in this way, we start using it without committing to it. So if there's any reason we want to send it back, and then maybe we hear a fan noise, or maybe there's something about it we don't like, you haven't just committed a whole bunch of labor into it that now you're going to be worried about your privacy and how do I get my stuff off there securely. All because you were impatient, it's going to take you 5 times longer to get it done. Okay, I mean, that's your choice. In my line of work, I don't have that luxury. It will end up putting me out of business if I shared that attitude. So I am sharing with you the attitude of a business and why we do it the way we do, so that we can ensure that we do things once and we do it the right way once. And if we have to send a unit back for any reason, we're not spending the reverse amount of time undoing the changes we made. We can literally just stop, cut our losses, and put it back in the box and ship it away. And the sooner we're able to return something, the faster we get a customer solution. Also, the less hassle with the return. When you wait till the very last day to return something, sometimes it can be a challenge. But if you're returning something within the first week of buying it, it's usually a pretty painless process. But if you've done so much to the system before you decided if you liked it, and now you have to undo all of that, and it's just more time you need in order to erase it and undo what you've done, that's putting off you getting your money back and getting something that's going to solve your problem, making it take you a lot more time before you're going to be done. I'll be done long before you are if that's the attitude you have. And if you're not making money, if you're not charging customers for your time, I guess it doesn't matter for you. But for me, it's whether or not my business exists. And I just choose to share that with you, that there's a rhyme and a reason to these processes, and there's no downside to you to follow my processes. But there is a potential downside if you don't. But it's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. Do whatever you want. Just want you to know what to expect when you make your decision. And if you're a gambler, don't let me get in your way. I'm not a gambler. Sometimes you get lucky. I don't, but you might. So after it grabs these updates, probably on the next reboot or within a matter of hours, the 25H2 update will be available for us. So I'm going to go ahead and let this download and install in real time, as I always do. And then if you guys have questions or concerns related to this mini PC or other tech, this will be the time to ask, because this is a great opportunity for us to just chat. It's sort of like when you go out to dinner with friends, you know, you might have a friend that says, hey, where's the food? And you're like, hey, that's not cool. That's not a socially acceptable way to behave. You're not here being served like a restaurant. We're here as a family gathering around a table. And while we wait for the food, we're going to have a discussion. And if you say, I'm only here for the food, and your discussion is just blah, 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 then you don't belong here. Please get out, because we only want friends and family here. We don't want customers. I want customers on the business side of things, but I want friends on the YouTube side of things. And so if I'm hosting a dinner for a business and the business partner has that attitude, I can understand. But if I'm hosting a dinner for friends and family and they have that attitude, I'm going to ask them to leave. That's not what this is about. We're not about the food so much as the camaraderie and the there's a word I'm looking for, I can't find it, but it's essentially enjoying each other's company, right? Otherwise, you know, they do make commercials, and I'm sure there are plenty of commercials on this unit, which will leave you with all the omitted information we're sharing with you, because if it takes too much time in your life, maybe computers just aren't right for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's okay. It's not everybody's thing. But as long as you'd like to join us and participate in our community in a friendly and respectful way, we love having you here. Absolutely. We have an amazing community, and the fact that so many people will dismiss it, don't know what they don't know, and you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, and that's their decision and their consequences. But they'll just won't know what they're missing. And for those of you joining us, it's these folks here in the chat room that make it so amazing. It's not me, it's them. And if you don't take the time to get to know them, that is your loss. Bill Stodd said, has anyone checked their IPv6 connectivity? Why? Why are you checking IPv6 connectivity? To what purpose? I'm just curious. Do I still recommend RoboForm? I don't see it mentioned much in the channel anymore. Well, we don't want to fatigue our viewers with the same sort of over and over and over again about this product or that product. So from time to time, we do mention these things without trying to beat you over the head with it. So for example, we've stopped for a while. We just took a break from the Windows license and Microsoft Office license keys. But we're going to start bringing it back and reminding people, because if you don't remind them, they forget. And if you remind them every day, it's really annoying for them and for me to just be a robot, right? I might as well just click a button and have it play. And then what you've got there is a commercial, which I'm trying to avoid. But I've been using RoboForm since about 2005. So about 20 years, a little over 20 years. And I've never found anything better or more secure. And that hasn't changed. Same could be said for Acronis. You don't hear me talk about that, or Instant House Call. I use Instant House Call constantly. But at the same time, I can either talk about it too much or I talk about it not enough. The specials that we were getting on RoboForm, or the specials that we were getting on some of the products, those specials don't last forever. So if we don't have any special to tell you about, there's no reason for me to bring it up. But yeah, if you have questions like that, you know, we're certainly happy to set your mind at ease. Bill Stodd said he's asking because it will be implemented in the near future. So I don't know where you're getting your information from, Phil, but IPv6 has been implemented for about 10 or 15 years now. and it's mostly used on the local side of your account, not on the internet side of your account. So when it comes to the local side of your account, you're probably using a non-routable IP address that we all use, you know, a 192.168 dot something dot something, or 10.0 dot something dot something. And since I can have that address of 192.168.0.1 and you can have 192.168.0.1, the problem is what happens when you yourself have a bunch of IoT, security cameras, garage door opener, a bunch of kids with cell phones and televisions and smart devices, and you run out of IP addresses. You may need IPv6 for the interior of your building. But IPv6 being delegated out through the internet, to the best of my knowledge, and I could be wrong, is not a thing. It's not what it's designed for. But if you want to share with us an article that you've read, I'd be happy to bring it up here on the screen and read it and see if there's a part of it that's explaining this that perhaps went right over your head or that you didn't fully comprehend, because in many cases the articles aren't written well. It depends who wrote the article. Some of these people that write articles like at Tom's Hardware and such, they're 15 years old. They're just paraphrasing things they don't understand. That's very common. On the other hand, if these articles are being written through a large trusted corporation like Microsoft and things of that nature, be very interested to see what the actual information that you have gleaned that from really says. Because I don't believe you've interpreted it correctly, or that it was written by somebody who interpreted it correctly. But nothing you need. I turn IPv6 off. I don't use it. In fact, if I ever see it turned on, it's just because I forgot to turn it off, and I will turn it off. I've never seen anybody in the world who needs it. Never in my life. Not yet. So, for whatever that's worth, man. I guess the simplest way I could have said it is IPv6 is for internal use only. If that ever changes, I'll let you know. But I think the way it's designed is it's not intended for using it as an IP address to go over the internet to somewhere else. Not saying that you couldn't. It's just security protocols and such would be concerning. And that would be a hard thing to type in, wouldn't it? Wait, is it? What's the codes? Phil Stodd said, I had a problem about 2 years ago. IPv6 would cause YouTube to load 60% and stop. I turned it off my local machine and the problem went away. Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for what you experienced. And, you know, I tied my left shoe differently today and I didn't trip. So I guess the way I tied my shoe must mean because I did that differently, I'm not tripping today. That may be true, or it may just be I'm connecting two unrelated things together. Also, there could have been other issues with the router needing an update that you were missing, or that your browser needed an update you were missing. So there's a lot of different ways that you could have come to the false conclusion that making this change made a difference, which may have actually made a difference, but there were probably 4 other things you could have done that could have resolved it unrelated to that. But in general, I don't see any reason to have IPv6 for home users. And if that ever changes, I'll let you know. So I don't see any harm in what you did, but I'm just saying, I think you have falsely concluded. If you want to go back and turn IPv6 back on just to check yourself and then see if YouTube repeats the same problem, I'd be curious, because I don't think that's what solved your... It was a solution, don't get me wrong, but I think what it was probably an update in the router or an update in the software, and has probably since been updated several times over since then. But you know, if you're curious, if you really believe that, turn it back on, see if YouTube goes back to loading slowly. I would believe it's probably not going to be a difference one way or the other. And for that reason, why have it? That's why I just turn it off. That's my, like, if you were my customer and you presented that to me, this is what I would tell you. Just being straight up. Bill Stodd said his ISP has a public IPv6 address. So typically your ISP will give you both IPv4 and IPv6. However, different ISPs may do things differently, but your IPv6 address shouldn't go any further than the router. At that point, then your router should be converting everything over to IPv4. If it isn't, you can just turn IPv6 off. So again, just because something, you know, Burger King handed me a burger with cheese on it, so I guess I have to have cheese on my... Now, in most cases, you can remove the cheese and you're fine. So I think you're coming to conclusions without fully taking the time to research why it's set that way. And instead, you're using your imagination or misinformation online to find causation where there is no correlation. And I just think that, in my experience, IPv6 is an option and not a requirement. However, should there be an ISP that I'm not aware of that is only issuing IPv6 to the modem, it shouldn't go any further than that. Once it comes out of the modem, it shouldn't be an IPv6 anymore unless you choose to leave it that way. So just for what it's worth, you would not need that as a consumer. An ISP is a big corporation, you know, I don't know, they might have reasons, but you on the consumer side of things would never need that. Not unless we're going 10 years into the future and things have drastically changed. But as we talk today in the end of February of 2026, it's mostly for corporate use. Martin says IPv6 is required for mobile phones and my ISP doesn't support it. So what I see a lot on the internet are people making statements, speaking as though they know what they're talking about, when they don't give any real world examples of the source of where they learned that from. So did they just make this up? And I'm not saying you did, Martin, but what I would ask for is a link, and specifically which ISP are you referring to and which phone are you referring to? Because all ISPs operate to their own rules. They don't follow anybody else's rules. If I want to start my own ISP, I do it my way. No one tells me how to do that. I have to fall within government regulation. And then, of course, when it comes to a phone, a Galaxy S20 versus a Galaxy S26 versus an iPhone 15 versus an iPhone 17 versus a Google Pixel, these all run by their own rules. Each company designs to their own values. And what applies to one manufacturer's model may not apply to another model, and definitely may not apply to another manufacturer. As far as I know, there's no such universal truth. However, if you have any documentation that comes from a validated source, I would be very interested to read it, because this would be information as far as like any sort of universal truth that is something I've never heard in my entire career. So I don't doubt that there are phones out there that have that requirement. I just don't know when they first started doing it and who are the ones doing it. Because, you know, something else Martin says that doesn't make sense to me is when he says his phones, when he says his ISP doesn't support V6, and so therefore what? What does that mean? Is your ISP your phone provider? Maybe that's where we're confused. My phone provider is a phone company. My ISP provider is an internet company. Ne'er the two shall meet. They're two different entities. And this will connect to my Wi-Fi router no differently than any other Wi-Fi device. The no Wi-Fi device I've ever seen in my life is V6 only. So if you have information I don't have, please provide us a link. You can use our email address. If you can't post a link in the chat, you can send it to us. But if it's Reddit or something, it's all nonsense. You're being lied to. But if you have an actual corporate link, like the cell phone manufacturer or your ISP says that they don't support cell phones unless they have V6, If you can't find that, it doesn't exist. And if you can find it, please share it with us. And you can send it right to our email right here. You can include the link, and in that way we can take a look to validate information that, to the best of my knowledge, is completely false, fabricated, and misunderstood, whether intentionally or unintentionally. We see the lack of education in the world today, causing a lot of problems. Somebody has a video that says if you were to save a penny every day for a year, by the end of the year you'd have $30,000. Now, I don't think you have to be a genius at math to know how many days there are in a year. Last I checked, it's not 30,000. So because this is so it's out there so much on the internet, I am going to be skeptical. It doesn't mean I'm not right. I mean, I could be wrong, but I never heard of such a thing in my entire life. So if in fact what you're telling me is true, this is a day for me to learn something. I don't know where you got your information from. And if you'd like to share with us where you gleaned that information, we can then verify if what you were told was just to see how gullible you were, or you found out something that applies maybe in your country if you live in another country, or to your model of phone that doesn't apply to us here in the States, or that something recent has changed that I'm unaware of. So at that point, we can go forward with the conversation. But we'd have to see where you're getting your information. Because if I were you, I wouldn't believe everything you see online. In fact, I wouldn't believe any of it without verification. And this is why it leads to a false sense of knowing what's going on, when in fact it's not what's going on at all. At least that's been my experience overall. There's always exceptions. But I like to keep it protected, and sometimes separating the truth from just the nonsense is really about, you know, who your source is. You need to be able to name the source. If you can't name the source, it's probably not true. That's it. Martin says, my ISP only does wired internet. So there is no such thing as an ISP that only does wired internet. That's not a thing. Whether or not you choose to have Wi-Fi is up to you. And if you were to buy a router, there is no such thing as an internet provider anywhere in the world that you couldn't just put Wi-Fi on. It's just not a thing. So I don't know where you're getting your information, Martin, and I'm sorry to see that someone has spun you around so backwards and has you so convinced what you think you're saying is true. But it is absolutely not true, and has never been true, ever. There's never been such a thing. It's never existed. So that's why we're here to educate, so people don't have to continue to believe all of these things. You know, if somebody doesn't teach you that the boogeyman isn't real, you could grow up your whole life afraid of something that doesn't exist and has never existed. So it's okay to have this misinformation when you can't tell what's real from what's fake. That's what education does. That's what we try and take our time to do, is empower all of our viewers with the knowledge to know how to verify information, so you don't keep getting played by fools on the internet that find it entertaining to manipulate you. And maybe you like being manipulated, and I'm assuming you don't, but my intention isn't to put anybody down. I just want to bring you up. I want to raise you up. And one of the ways we do that is if we identify something that's clearly more of an emotional belief versus a verifiable scientific fact, we at least want to call out the difference between how somebody feels versus how something actually is, right? And so I'm not really interested in how any particular people feel about things. That's your problem for you to deal with your psychologist. I'm here to talk about these are the facts, and then here's how we deal with them. And that's it. There's no emotion in it at all. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of misinformation. And if you don't know any better, it can lead you down a path of believing you know something you actually are completely wrong about. And that's why verification is always very important before you adopt something as a truth, in my world anyway. So that's why I ask you to send me a link, because maybe you know something I don't, and I'd like to see where you're getting your information from, because it doesn't sound like it's a reputable source. But until I see it, I'm making an assumption.
And that should be the default when you're getting information online. Your default should always be skepticism until proven otherwise. This is going to get worse with the advent of AI, and people just don't want to think for themselves anymore. They let the AI think for them. It removes your independence, it removes your freedoms, and it makes you, at the end of the day, it makes you dependent on your government. It makes you dependent on the technology because you no longer know how to do these skills, or you feel like there's nothing you can do. You know, I saw a post on Twitter the other day that someone said, our freezer just died, and they don't make them like they used to. It's just out of warranty. I tried calling the company and they put me on hold for 2 hours, and I just hung up the phone. I got a lot of frozen meat and frozen food. I just want to give it away to people before it goes bad. But, you know, we had a freezer from the 1950s that worked for 40 years or whatever. And this one didn't even last beyond its warranty period. And it's all this cheap crap coming from, you know, blah, 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 blah. And my response is, you know, growing up in the era that I grew up, if the freezer broke, we took it apart and we fixed it. We didn't say, oh, a repair person's too expensive, or we got to call warranty. Sometimes it's a fuse. Sometimes it's a little reset breaker you press. Sometimes it's the dumbest thing. And yet people have clicked off their brain where they're just now suddenly a victim. If the machine decides it doesn't want to work, we're just going to have to get rid of the hundreds of dollars of food in it before it spoils, because God forbid we make an effort to try to repair it ourselves. I mean, these days with the YouTube videos, you could just type in the make and model of your freezer and go through some basic diagnostic videos step by step. That's what we did in the 80s because we didn't have a choice. We didn't have any money. We couldn't just go buy another one. We were lucky to have the one we had. So we would at least make an attempt. And more often than not, it was a pretty easy thing to fix. A lot of times it's just a fuse or a breaker reset. That's all it was. And to think somebody's going to get rid of a freezer and get rid of the food because they're just too ignorant to know how to check, because they've become dependent on technology thinking for them, makes my heart sad that that's where our culture is moving. And that's fine. You know, culture wants to move that way. They'll move without me. I don't have a problem with it personally, but overall, the big picture of it is it's not looking good. Like, as we become less self-reliant and less self-sufficient, we become more controlled by those who control us. And if you like to be controlled, enjoy. Me personally, I enjoy my freedom, and I enjoy the fulfillment that I receive when I'm able to repair something or, you know, make something work again. And I'm here to encourage that, and that comes with understanding how the technology works. It's not a magic box. And if you take the time to see how it works, it's actually all very simple. But some people just aren't interested, and they just want to go through life reacting. I prefer to want to go through life being involved. And I can't fix everything, but I'd sure love to make an attempt before I call somebody in for help or replace something, depending on its value. Something like a freezer with a lot of food in it, time is ticking. But yeah, that just disheartened me to see that. We couldn't afford to have that attitude. We just couldn't afford it. So I guess financially they're better off than I was, because we didn't have a choice. We weren't going to give away our food. We needed that food. And we would try and fix it, and we would go to the store and buy bags of ice if we had to, until we ate down the food, because that would still be cheaper than paying a repair person if it's out of warranty and replacing the unit. We just wouldn't add anything else to it until we got it emptied with bags of ice. That's pretty inexpensive to take care of it. So I was just raised in a very different way than today's, I guess, younger folks that just expect things to be done for them, and they won't think on their own, and they won't take on any challenges that, you know, God forbid they might have to do something. So it saddens me. It's all over social media. It's just constant victimization. Windows 11 is so terrible, but why do you keep using it? I don't have a choice. You have a choice. You're choosing to use it, and you're choosing to constantly complain about it. Stop using it. It's not rocket science. If something's hurting you, Stop. Go use something else. You can't tell me how much you hate the meal I put in front of you and then ask me for seconds. You have to pick one or the other. You can't say this food is the worst food I've ever eaten. I think it's going to make me sick. Can I have a second helping? No. No. Pick a lane. If you don't like it, don't eat it. There's other voluntary choices you could be making that you can enjoy. But to torture me having to listen to you complain about how terrible of a decision maker you are is like, what did I ever do to you? Like you're getting mad at the world for the decisions you make. Make different decisions. No one can help you. You have to do that. And yet, especially Twitter and places like Reddit, it's just constant whining about things people are using. Stop using them. If they say, well, I don't have a choice, well, then you should be grateful, because what you're telling me is without it, you wouldn't be able to do whatever it is that allows you to do that you're complaining about. So there is a thing called gratitude, and it seems like it's not in this generation, unfortunately. Saddens me, because gratitude is much more rewarding mentally, and it's much more rewarding in your personality to appreciate that you have something to complain about. Martin says, if I buy a Wi-Fi router, am I an ISP even if I don't resell the internet? No, because an ISP provides the internet within a very limited range of that router. The broadcast range would be pretty much your house. To be an ISP, you'd have to be able to deliver internet within, multiple houses and multiple blocks for multiple miles. So whether that would be something like Starlink or wired coaxial cable or fiber optics, it terminates at everybody's house in one way or another, and everybody has their own connection. But if you buy a stack of plates and you're serving dinner, does that make you a restaurant? Doesn't Wi-Fi need to buy 5G spectrum? No. No. Wi-Fi is not cellular. Wi-Fi is a radio frequency. And there is a 5 gigahertz frequency, and there's a 5G cellular frequency, which is for cell phones and devices connected to cell towers, 3G, 4G, 5G. And I can see how this could get confusing when you have both 5G and 5 gigahertz. However, these are two unrelated signals, and a phone can use quite often either one. So if I were to go to, let's say I'm here in the house, I'm connected locally via 5 gigahertz, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz to the Wi-Fi network. When I leave the range of the network, I get in the car and I drive away from the house, my signal drops off and there's no signal. So when the phone says, okay, there's no Wi-Fi signal, we'll get the data from your 5G cellular data. And the reason it does it in that order is the 5G cellular data is usually limited, how much bandwidth you can use. And, for me, I barely use it, but for some people, they're out and about all the time. So rather than connect like at a Starbucks Wi-Fi, I'd rather just continue to use my own private 5G on the phone, which I'm not sharing with anybody. It's much more secure, so long as, security cameras or people looking over your shoulder aren't seeing everything you're doing on your phone. But that's the same regardless if you're on Wi-Fi or 5G. But 5G is a cellular signal, 5 gigahertz is a Wi-Fi. They're two very different things. And your phone, especially if it's a modern phone, can switch back and forth. Most computers like this, these are only going to connect to Wi-Fi. They won't connect to 5G. Although they do make, tablets and other things that you would buy a SIM card for, that you could then, no differently than a cell phone, take them with you and connect as you would a phone to get your internet access, rather than relying on a public Wi-Fi, which, public Wi-Fi is just not secure. If you bring your own, it's much more secure. And then if you want to attach that, like for example, there's a feature on here called tethering. And so what tethering allows you to do is turn the phone into a Wi-Fi router. So I can take the 5G cellular signal and output it at a 5 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal. And I could set that down and let, 5 or 10 devices within about 20, 30 feet of me share my cellular signal for internet data. Not for making phone calls unless you're making the phone calls over the internet, but for just having Wi-Fi. So, yeah, I think you've confused, and it's a very easy thing to confuse 5 gigahertz from 5G. They're two different things. Oh, did my updates finish over here? Let's see. I must have bumped a button here. Where are we at on our updates? Oh, still working on it. Okay, we haven't missed anything. So I enjoy the conversations. It gives me an opportunity to sort of clarify some things that are very commonly misunderstood online. China has 70% IPv6 traffic on mobile networks. Yeah, that's probably true, but I don't think anybody's running web servers on their phone or on their mobile network. So, I'm trying to figure out, are you just trying to argue yourself into a point, or do you live in China, or have you been to China and this affected you in some way, or are you just bored and looking for something to talk about? I really like to help people solve problems. So if you're in China and you're having an issue with Wi-Fi, with IPv6, I'd like to understand what the problem is so I can help you resolve it. But what you started this conversation off with was saying you couldn't use IPv6, and I'm telling you that's not true. And now you've switched the subject, I guess, I don't know why you did that. I don't know what that has to do with you or me. I don't know what's going on in Slovakia or Italy or China or India. I don't know what's going on over there. And every country has their own rules and regulations and their own challenges. They're not, the whole world isn't just one place. And so along with the culture differences and the technology differences, it wouldn't be normal or reasonable to think that you're just going to get on a plane, fly halfway around the world, and everything's going to be familiar and common to you. You need to adapt to their ways. And in doing so, there'll be differences there that don't affect you here. So I don't know what the point of that discussion is unless you're getting ready to travel. But when customers call me for help, it's usually about a problem they have. And that's what I'm really good at doing. If the point is to argue, I've got people to help. I'd rather move your questions aside and say, hey, if at some point we just want to BS about nothing that we have no control over, that has no impact on us, if that's all we have to do all day is gossip, I mean, if I have the time for it, I don't mind. It's just that so long as there are people needing help, I want to focus my attention on them. Mark wants to know if I think CAM2 RAM will be the next standard when it comes to RAM. I think that what I said about CAM2 initially, and this was discussed way back 3 or 4 years ago, is it will never amount to being widely adopted. And I stick by that. And the reason for that is simply that it's too expensive and too limited. I think what we're going to see is more of RAM being soldered in, sort of a unified RAM kind of a deal, versus continuing this old school method of buying these individual RAM modules and adding them on. At some point, you'll realize how archaic that is. It's very expensive, and it's nothing like an Atari cartridge where you would take your game of Breakout, you'd pop the cartridge out and put your game of, Pong in there, and now you've got a new game. For memory modules to be so swappable like Atari game cartridges would imply that you're swapping them out all the time. This is an incredible expense compared to just soldering the RAM on, and the RAM you solder on would be faster, more reliable, less likely to ever have a problem, and you wouldn't need to upgrade it anymore. Like, for the most part, the way they build systems today in software is not the same as it was 20 years ago. So this idea that I want to keep upgrading my RAM is it's just an old hangover. It's held over from years before. But the technology has changed now, and the people who really need a lot of RAM are mostly developers or intensive enthusiasts, resource-hungry, game players, or people that have the deeper pockets for that. So that'll always be available for those people. But for your average computer user in business office, it's all of that's history, and we're starting to see it wane away. And it will do it primarily for economic reasons. But if you want the convenience of having everything modular, you could buy a framework laptop. They'll never, ever be a #1 selling laptop. People just aren't going to buy them in mass compared to, say, Dells and HPs. It comes down to price. And also, as nice as it might be for some people to like to be able to swap components out in a laptop, you could buy 2 or 3 laptops for the price of that one framework. And for every time you're paying to upgrade it, you probably could just buy a new laptop for not much more money. So it doesn't really appeal to most people, but there's enough people it appeals to that they're in business. But it's been proven before. We did this in the 90s with modular laptops. It never stuck. It failed. It's like people don't remember the past, and they're not embracing the future because they think it's like a sign of getting older, I think, that all this new stuff is terrible and we did it better back in the day. I disagree. I couldn't disagree more. I will gladly never see a VHS tape again. I will gladly never see a cassette tape. I will gladly never see another CD player. It was great at the time, but to go backwards in time thinking that was superior is delusional. Everything's so much better today, so much more convenient, and I wouldn't want to go through all that. And the vast majority of the public agrees, because that's what's selling. There's always going to be a little bit of people that don't want to give up their film cameras, but film cameras barely sell anymore. And you'll see the digital camera go away too. It'll get to a point where the camera technology in your phone will be far superior than any big digital single lens reflex camera you can buy. It'll outpace it, outsmart it, outpixel it, while being lighter, smaller, cheaper, more durable, and it'll have a longer battery life. I don't know how anybody could say, well, I like the warmth of the grain. Okay, I mean, that's your choice, but it doesn't represent the world you live in. It represents a very small enthusiast community that, choose what they choose because they can, and all the power to them. Freedom is great. I think that if CAM2 memory were to be a thing, it would have been a thing by now. And now I think it's too late. It's already obsolete as far as I'm concerned. In the entire time we've been making videos here, we've never seen CAM memory. Not a single computer. There have been a few Dells that were built with it. We've never seen one. So it's just, you've got marketing hype with investors that invest a lot of money in this stuff, and they want to convince you. They want to manipulate your thoughts through the media that they pay for to convince you that this is better and this is what you want, so they can sell it, so they can generate revenue and get paid back on their investment of whatever it cost in research and development to develop the CAM. Their job after that development is to convince you to buy it. Now, clearly they haven't convinced enough people, because I still haven't seen it. And if they haven't done it in 4 years, seems highly unlikely with the advancement of DDR6 and where we're moving forward with processors, that ship has sailed. I could be wrong. I could be surprised and suddenly it could get popular. But I've seen RAM bus memory come and go. I've seen Optane come and go. I've seen so much of this hype in my life that it's like, oh, here we go again with, oh, what is it this time? So it's the exact same thing with a different name. That pretty much never takes off. Pretty much never. And when it does, it's the exception. So you might see that as me kind of having a negative view, but I guess it comes from reliving this Groundhog Day over and over and over again. It's like, here we go again. Framework laptop. Oh, we've already done this. RAM bus memory. Oh, here we go again. CAM memory. Oh, it'll be different this time. It's always the same. If you know your history, you'll see the repetition in it in the technology. And these companies are hopeful that they can convince you, because if they can, there's a lot of money in it for them. But you know, sometimes you don't know if you've got a hit product. I mean, everybody who makes a product thinks every product they make is the best thing. The human AI pin, they thought they had the best product on earth. Don't exist anymore. So ultimately, what our culture accepts and adopts, there's so much manipulation PR can do. But you know, if it's not affordable or not attainable or not practical, it just isn't going to work, no matter how badly they want to tell you how much better it is. That's their job. Anybody telling you it's better is pretty much paid to tell you it's better. If somebody wants to pay me to tell you CAM2 memory is better, and it's a fat enough check, I guess I'll be here telling you how wonderful it is. But if you want an unbiased truth, you need to get away from the media. Somebody's paying for it. We got that big preview update that's installing. That's a big one. Okay, let's see. Something crazy said Ryzen's pretty much ahead in everything. It's been interesting seeing Intel and AMD for the lead. What are my thoughts? Well, again, if you go back, like when I first started building computers professionally in 1991, you could have had Texas Instruments, Cyrix, AMD, Intel. It was a variety of manufacturers, and eventually we got down to Intel and AMD. And man, I'll tell you, those AMD Athlon XP processors were such a better deal than Intel at the time. But then Intel eventually, after a few years of falling behind AMD, they came back and came out with the Core Duo and the Core 2 Duo processors, and then AMD was in the hole for about 10 years. When AMD released their Zen processors, it was pretty interesting from a gaming perspective, but not so much from a business perspective. And then their EPYC processors for servers, as we enter into more servers, started eating into Intel's profits. However, with Intel's latest new, what is it, Core Ultra 300 series, now they're whooping AMD again. So it's always a back and forth. And ideally, with a healthy competition, that's what you want to see. I don't believe that one of these companies is just always superior to the other one, depending on the frame of time with the position the company is in. One company does really good. AMD was on the verge of bankruptcy. The story of how AMD came back instead of closing its doors is awe-inspiring, and one of, if you're interested in the business of it, is miraculous. AMD was about done, and they were just days away from closing their doors. And so to make a comeback like this is something that should be celebrated and respected. But whether or not one really makes a difference over the other one depends on how you use it. In business, generally speaking, in business we use tools. And tools are generally made by Intel. And in general, especially on YouTube and on the internet, where most consumers take up the most amount of space online in communities and things like this, forums, they choose to ignore anything that doesn't meet their needs. So if your needs are gaming, then and you don't consider business, you don't have a job, you don't go to work, someone else pays your bills, maybe you're retired, I don't know. All you care about is playing your games. I completely understand why you'd be so one-sided and have blinders on when it comes to AMD. It's a toy. When it comes to developers, that's an interesting one because AMD's AI solutions are quite interesting, but then NVIDIA will have their chip coming out that should smoke both AMD and Intel. And so as a developer who's creating and utilizing AI for controlling operations and factories and things, the promise is really with NVIDIA's new chip that we'll see here, hopefully by the end of the year. We'll see some NVIDIA models running on Windows for ARM. And that shows a lot of promise depending on what you're using the computer for. So if I take you to a shoe store and all you're interested in is playing basketball and you want to look at the basketball shoes, you may not appreciate the $7,000 pair of Louis Vuittons, right? You may look at that and go, those are terrible. And you know, you're not right, you're not wrong. On the other hand, somebody who's dressed in a $3,000 suit driving a $150,000 car may not be seen in a pair of basketball shoes. It would be, for some people, commonly looked down upon by their peers as sort of beneath you. But again, everybody's got their own values. And there's no real clear value that's more valuable than anybody else's. We respect each other's values. And so for that reason, we have choices. And thank goodness we do, because I wouldn't want to live with your choices. And it doesn't sound like you'd want to live with mine. So the very fact that we have the option to buy the one that matters to us, whether or not someone agrees with us, should not be important. If you're not certain of the decision you're making for yourself and you require the approval of strangers, I think that's something that is typically found when you're younger and is usually something that matters less to you as you mature and care less and less about what people think and don't need people to agree with you. You don't go looking for it because it doesn't matter. You know what's right for you. You don't know what's right for anybody else. And so long as you're confident in that belief, I don't really think anybody cares. I personally don't care what your preference of CPU is. It doesn't make a difference in my world. And I don't care what you think of my preference of CPU. It's freedom. Enjoy it. Have gratitude that you have those choices. And I would hope that instead of looking for people who agree with you, that you're looking for people who are exercising their free choice and seeing that as something to celebrate. So the idea that we have AMD and Intel and now NVIDIA joining, and of course we have Qualcomm, it offers a lot of potential opportunities to solving problems that you don't have with budgets that are not yours, for people that will be, I don't know the best way to explain this, but would see a value in something that you don't value. So whether or not you value it doesn't matter. If I go on eBay and I see something and I say, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody's trying to sell that. It doesn't really matter if I'm not bidding on it, right? Because I'm not, regardless of what I think, the seller doesn't care. If I walk into a store that sells candles and I go, I can't believe people buy candles. Why are they buying candles? Why are you in the store? Just leave. In the meantime, please get out of the way of the people that are shopping for candles. You know what I mean? Like, they're not doing anything wrong. What are you, anti-candle? That's the beauty of freedom. And that's what I embrace and encourage all of you to embrace your differences and your likes and your dislikes. And hopefully we can all enjoy our passion for the technology, but not necessarily our passion for a specific set of the technology. Like, do you like computers? I like computers. Well, I like Intel. Well, I like AMD. Well, then I don't want to talk to you anymore. That's so tribal. It's so primitive. I don't want to live in that world. And so that does exist online. I won't have any part of it. That's just school recess stuff. I lived past that. I've grown up since then. So I love the fact that somebody has something different than me and it has an opportunity for me to learn, right? What do you like about it? Well, I like that I can do this and this and this. Oh, I never thought of that before. Yeah, I don't do any of those things, but if I did, yeah, I could see where I would buy differently. Yeah, what do you like about yours? Well, I like that I can play Call of Duty and I can, oh, you play games. Okay. Yeah. If I was playing games too, in other words, if I was in your shoes, I'd probably make the same decisions. It makes sense. You're not making a wrong decision. And neither is the other person. And that's the beauty of the world that I want to live in, is where everybody respects one another's wishes. Whether or not they agree with you doesn't change anything. We've all agreed it's not raining out. Is it still raining out? Let me know how that works. We've all agreed I'm 10 feet tall. Does that make me 10 feet tall? So whether or not somebody agrees with you doesn't change anything in reality. It's a psychological thing that you may choose to value it. I think it's a waste, personally. But anyway. Still installing. I do know that that is a big update. That's not a security update. That's like a preview of new features coming up on the next month's update, next Tuesday. So it's not a required update, but I like to have it. I like to stay on top of it before I get calls from customers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Let me take a quick look here, full screen. 87%, okay. Paul Connolly said, I'm definitely anti-candle. Hey, listen, you're right. Your peanut butter's in my chocolate. Your chocolate's in my peanut butter. Yeah, the philosophies that we see online are often painted as tribalism, where they're looking for other people to agree with them. And they seem to be under the belief that the more people agree with them, the more right they are. And I would avoid that trap, because as we just proven, we can all agree that something is true that isn't, and it doesn't change it. No matter how much you agree that I'm 10 feet tall and that I have $1 million, it doesn't change what's real. But if it's a psychological need to feel people agreeing with you, if you need that, I don't know what to say. Like, that's more psychological, and I'm not a psychologist. But I do know when I was younger that was important to me, to have the approval of other kids. But as an adult, these other people aren't paying my bills. They don't care if I go homeless. They will not lend me a hand. So if that's what I can expect from them, whatever they think doesn't matter to me, because it has no impact and it has no effect on getting my bills paid. So my main focus and attention is getting the bills paid. And so if somebody that's homeless wants to make fun of me, will I go home to my house that I pay for because I have a job and I'm a responsible adult? I don't know how you think I'm going to react. You think it's going to bother me? Going to laugh all the way to my house. Enjoy your cardboard box. It's fine. That's their freedom. Mitch will lend me a hand. You think Mitch can make me 10 feet tall? If I ride on his shoulders, maybe. Mark Baggett said, I use my laptop for work and my PlayStation 5 for when I have some rare downtime to game. I don't really have a lot of time for gaming anymore, but still enjoy it. I love gaming. I love it. If I could figure out how to make the house payment, the electric payment, the cell phone payment, pay for the food, the car insurance, pay for the house repairs that happen from time to time, buy my clothes, get a haircut, go to the dentist, see the doctor, have medical care as needed, buy some shoes, I don't know, put fuel in the car, do the oil changes and the maintenance and the tires and the brakes, as well as just laundry and dishes and all the things that go with living life. If all that could get done while I am playing Minecraft, wouldn't that be great? On the other hand, if what I'm doing in the world is only virtual and doesn't actually exist, at what point will I fall into such a depressive nature that when I realize nothing I'm doing is real and my precious time here on Earth has been foolishly squandered away with distraction until I'm up to my very end days and realize how I screwed up, there's no rewind button to go back and do it again. But, you know, to each their own. Some people just want life to be over. They just want to get through it with as little effort as possible. And those will be the most unfulfilled lives at the end of it. So it'll come to an end for all of us, and whether or not you're satisfied with how you lived your life and what you were able to accomplish, what difference you were able to make in the world or to your family and your friends, that's for you to contend with at those end days. And, you know, if you want to spend a few hours gaming, have at it. But if you want to wake up and just game until you go to bed and do that every day, I feel bad for you. Just really feel bad for you. You're missing out. You are missing out. I've got an upright Galaga machine at Studio A. Takes quarters. It's an actual arcade game. Freaking love that game. I haven't played it probably 2 or 3 years, but I do turn it on from time to time to make sure it still works. Because if it needs to be fixed, you know, I'll prioritize fixing it. But I want it, you know, it's 20 minutes of gaming, maybe an hour of gaming once in a great while. I love it. It's great fun. I'm not anti-gaming. I'm also not anti-eating, but if all I do is eat all day and I don't do anything else, I don't think that's going to end well for me. So a little this, a little that, moderation. And of course, being able, the priority is to be able to pay the bills. That's it. Every 30 days, all these bills are due. Nobody's writing me checks unless I do work. Now, if you know another way around that, please let me know. Maybe I'm doing it the hard way. Zvi Manor says, why update 24H2 and not upgrade to 25H2? I don't know, it's 601, half dozen of the other. It's like if you were served a meal and you started eating your French fries before you're eating your meat, why not start with the meat? I don't know. Why do you care? Does it make a difference to you? You could choose to do this 6 different ways. You could say, well, why not just wipe the whole thing and start over again with 25H2? You could say, why not just use the Windows Installation Assistant? You could say, why not just do the Windows updates so that it doesn't require any effort? You just click the update button, it'll take care of itself. You know, why shovel the snow? The sun will melt it eventually. If you want to do the work, go ahead of me. But for me personally, I like to verify that Windows Update is in fact working and doing as it should on a new build. And by circumventing the automatic update processes, you're making an assumption that the computer, when delivered to a customer, will function as it's supposed to. Instead, I would prefer to emulate the customer's usage of the computer to verify, in fact, that it is updating automatically like it's supposed to. So I have reasonable confidence when I deliver that to a customer that it will work as designed. So again, it's just a personal preference that I have, and it involves a little bit of laziness in the sense that I click a button and I don't have to do the work. Let it do it. And it's going to be a little slower, but so what? Can I help you? Oh, come here. Wait, don't run away. Don't run away. Oh, she ran away. Come here. Come here. Speak English. I don't speak Cantonese. We have a stray cat that has moved in and no longer wants to go outside. One thing we don't have to worry about is this cat will never run away. You can leave the door open, leave for 3 days, come back, she'll still be here. She won't be far. What are you doing? You want to say hello? Come here. She won't let me grab her. She walks right up to me and I got to reach out and then she runs away. Edward said if he had 1 or 2 pinball machines, he'd be happy. Yeah, you know, the pinball was more my brother's game. He's a few years older than me. Well, there were pinball machines in the arcade. I played them, but they weren't my thing. You know, there's an art and a talent to it that bigger people, I think, would be better at it because you got to kind of shift the machine. You don't want to tilt it. And I much prefer digital games where, you know, you're not physically having to bump into the machine and, you know, work with physics and stuff to make it work. It's just electronics. My brain is better designed for that logic than pinball. But I do enjoy pinball from time to time, but nothing there was no particular pinball machine that I could name that I was good at or that appealed to me. I can't name a single one. But if they were there and I wanted something different to do, pop a quarter in and sure, why not? Mark says, bribe the cat with treats. It works for my cat. Yeah, treats are in the other room. Andy said if a cat ran away where he lives, it would be coyote food. I don't know. I don't know. This cat has some murder mittens on it. I think it could.
No, she just wanted to be fed.
No, I'm saying the cat. If it were confronted with a coyote outside, given it's a stray cat, it probably has happened, and she's lived to tell the tale. I don't think a coyote would win. She's got some murder mittens on her, is all I'm saying. She's a survivor. She's a scrapper.
Gentle.
She is gentle. She's a very gentle cat, but I think if she were threatened, which I'm sure has happened in her life as a stray, she's able to take care of herself. She ain't starting any fights, but I think she's ending them, is what I'm trying to say. It's very Gen X of her. Bill Stodd said no one under 18 years of age is legally allowed to play pinball in South Carolina as of 2024. That's interesting because there is a documentary that you might find interesting. Was it The Man Who Saved Pinball? And it is a true story. Yeah, The Man Who Saved the Game. Pinball, The Man Who Saved the Game. By proving that it was not gambling, that it was a game of skill. Because they were trying to do that many, many years ago, back in the 70s. I think 76, out there in New York, were trying to make it like it's a slot machine. And he was able to say, look, I can put the ball here. If I pull this, forget what that thing's called, pull back the thing and under a certain amount of pressure, I can have that ball fall into this slot. It's like 5 different slots. And I'll shoot 5 different balls and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will control where the ball goes. And he did it live. They brought a pinball machine in. They actually had a spare one just in case. And demonstrated to the city council live that the ball went exactly where he said it was going to go. And from that point forward, pinball was seen as a game of skill. So if they've now gone backwards in 2024, even though this was already proven and it was already done in 1974, or 76, if 50 years later, they're now going backwards. Let me just Google this. No one under the age of 18 is illegally allowed in South Carolina. Let's see. Let's see if that's true. That's backwards. Because again, it already went through the legal process. At least it did in New York. technically illegal for anyone under the age of 18, according to Section 6319, 2430 of the South Carolina Children's Code. Playing pinball is classified as a status offense for minors, a law originally intended to curb gambling that remains on the books. South Carolina is considered the only state with this specific restriction still in place. And while it's still active, it's rarely, if ever, enforced, with many arcades, and notably the Myrtle Beach Pinball Museum, they allow minors to play. If it's an unenforced law, then they've tried to repeal it. Despite being an archaic law, it remains a status offense. That could theoretically lead to issues for minors, but as far as I know, it's never, ever happened. So I don't know why they have laws on the books if they don't want to enforce them. But if you inform the lawmakers of South Carolina to watch this documentary, which takes place in 1976, they can see that this argument's already been had and won 50 years ago. And by choosing to ignore the past doesn't mean it didn't happen. There's a level of just ignorance there that shows that the lawmakers are disconnected from the reality, and it is not gambling, and it's already been proven, and we're just going around in circles, and they don't enforce it anyway. So if you're not going to enforce it, is it a law? But that's interesting. I'm surprised that we have a state so backwoods that they're completely oblivious of the past 50 years of the surrounding states in our country that's supposed to be united, that they choose to not be united and to ignore the past as though it didn't happen. There's a level of willful ignorance there that one could only assume could only be a lawmaker, could be that level of obtuse. Only a lawmaker in the United States, the people making the laws, could be that ignorant, willfully ignorant, as such that no one in the community enforces it, because everybody but the lawmakers clearly think this has already been done and it's a non-issue. So the issues with the lawmakers, unfortunately, they're making laws on things they don't understand. But it'll get fixed eventually, just when the right person challenges it. But someone's probably going to have to get charged with it first. Otherwise, why poke a sleeping bear, you know? Let me change my resolution. I want to go to 1920 by 1080 here. Display settings. Keep the changes. And I'm kind of curious if we're going to get 25H2 offered. It will eventually be offered. Sometimes it takes a couple hours, and other times it'll be like on your next check. So let's see which way it is for us today. Now, we know that's a SATA drive, so we know what kind of drive performance to expect out of it. This machine is very quiet and very easy to service, and that much is pretty much the same as the E3B from 12 months ago that we reviewed here, with just a more power efficient, cooler running CPU that is sort of a next generation above and beyond. So that being said, you know, you're at a $300 price point, which is getting harder and harder to hit that price point. And I have kudos to the folks at Kamrui and Ace Magic for continuing to develop this out-of-the-box thinking for utilizing less expensive processors. That's still an upgrade from last year's model, but without the price increase most other manufacturers are seeing in the past year for the same model because of RAM and SSD, you know, prices. So Bill Stodd talking about laws. Yeah, I mean, there's spirit of the law and there's letter of the law, and we'll always argue about how that's defined. There's what you can legally do versus what the spirit of the law is for, right? So if they say you got to stay within these lines and you just step over the line and you haven't done anything else, I mean, in theory, the technicality of the law is that the law is broken, but the spirit of the law isn't about that. The spirit of the law would have been there for safety or other reasons, which was looking at a bigger picture than stepping over a line. And, you know, depending on whether or not that law is being enforced and how it's being enforced doesn't mean simply because you are being ticketed or cited for something that you're automatically guilty. That's what you go to court for. If a court doesn't find that that enforcement of law was reasonable or prudent, it'll be dismissed, and it was all just a waste of everybody's time. So thank goodness that we have the justice system in America, even though it's not always just. At least you get your day in court. You know what I mean? At least you get that. Scott Messerschmidt joins us and says hello. You know, what a lot of people don't know about the law and speed limits is the speedometer in your car is directly as accurate as the air and tread on your tires. So as your tires wear, your speedometer will lose accuracy. And so it would be reasonable to allow a 3-mile-an-hour variance. So if you're driving 45 and this clock, the cop says you're driving 48, I think any reasonable court would say that's within the tolerance allowed for the accuracy of a speedometer. In fact, I don't even believe a speedometer is a legal requirement. I mean, if you know how fast you're driving without one, you don't have to have a speedometer. But the speedometer is measuring, most cases, the rotation of the tire. So if you've got a different size tire than what the car was designed for, your speedometer is going to be off. But under, you know, leaving everything alone and just under normal wear and tear, your speedometer by law has to fall within, you know, when they're tested to be sold for these cars, when the cars are tested to be sold for sale, the speedometer has to fall within a level of accuracy, and I believe it's a plus or minus 3 miles an hour. So if you're supposed to be driving 45 and you're driving 42, but the speedometer says 45, or you go 3 miles an hour the other way, it's 48, you are legally, is my understanding, I'm not a lawyer and these laws could vary from state to state, within the tolerance of the accuracy allowed by law of the speedometer. So in that case, the ticket would probably be dismissed, that they would say, and the cop should know better, but maybe it's a new cop and they don't know better. But regardless of that, if it's a school zone, you know, and there's children in a crosswalk or something, that may be a more serious offense, right? But even then, I still believe that the accuracy of the speedometer isn't something the state tests on your car. So you have to allow for the natural wear and tear of the tires, the air inflation of the tires, or if the owner of the car has modified the tires, made them bigger or smaller, then their speedometer will no longer be accurate. So does anybody have any other questions regarding this mini PC that I can answer for you? Again, I think there was certainly confusion on our part that we're like, it's an E3B. Why don't they give this a different name? Why don't they call it an E3B1 or E3C? Did they run out of letters and numbers? I find that whole naming convention to be frustratingly and unnecessarily confusing to a consumer. Because if we look this model up on Amazon, you're going to find 4 different variations of it. And I want you to know which version you're buying, right? I want you to get what you're expecting to get. I don't want you to have any surprises. And when manufacturers share the model name, it's difficult for regular non-technical people to notice those differences. So all I can do is make you aware of it. And I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of companies when they, again, I don't know what the cost of registering a new name is. Maybe they're trying to save money there, which ultimately saves you money. And that just means the more knowledge you have, the more money you can save when you understand what you're buying. And if you want the manufacturer to do all the work for you, and you're willing to pay a little bit more money for that convenience so you don't have to think on your own, then that may be a better choice depending on what your attitude is in that vein. So, but I do believe that the more empowered you have, the more knowledge you have, the more empowered you are, and that you rely less and less on being told by the manufacturer, that you could make your own decision by knowing what details to look for, if an example would be a shared model number that has a variance of different parts. Understanding what you're buying and what's important to you and how much value that has, instead of being told. But to each their own. Andy says it's an A-OK Mini for the price. It's not bad for a mid or low tier Mini. Yeah, and we're not getting a whole lot of those right now. The idea that we're even having mini PCs in the $300 range that are not N95s or something like that is impressive, I think. You coming back? Meow?
Want some attention?
Are you answering emails?
Working. Working it.
Let's see. Oh, she's running away every time. Meow. Meow.
Give her a minute or two.
And that is a stray cat.
Not stray anymore.
That is a scrapper.
She adopted us.
Sleeping in a hole,
The sweetie pie.
eating out of the trash can. She's not too proud. She'll get it done. And she don't care what you think.
Little sweetie pie. There you go, little sweetie.
That'll teach her to come in here. Oh, now she's complaining and walking away. How dare you humiliate me such a way? All right, Princess Donut. Guard the house. Pay the rent. I got a watch cat. Am I a cat person? No. But the cat is a Carey person, and no matter how much I try to advise her, she doesn't listen. So I push her away, and then she just curls up on me, and she's nice. She doesn't cause any problems. She uses her litter box. She doesn't create any messes. She's not clawing any furniture. So I'm not upset with her, but I'm not a cat person. And she doesn't care if I'm a cat person or not, because she's decided she's a Carey person. And I told her that's really bad judgment. And she says she didn't care what I think. So here we are. And he said that's a big fluffy cat. So as you can see, Windows 25H2 is downloading, and we didn't have to download anything. We didn't have to put any effort into it. We just hit check for updates and just leave it alone. It takes care of itself. And again, this does two things for me. One, it's less work for me. Remember, when I'm running a business here, I'm not just a guy at home with a computer. There's over 80 computers in this building. And I'm always doing something to one of them, whether it's a review, whether it's, hey, it's time to get this on the bench and get it updated. It's been off for 6 months. There's probably a new BIOS. Let's get it caught up on Windows updates. This is a full-time job for 3 people that I do by myself. So while this would be updating, I will be doing something else. It's just that when we make a live video, I want to show you what's involved if you choose to buy one of these, not if you choose to buy 80 of them. That's a different video altogether. And by allowing it to do this on its own, that frees me up to go do something else. But you may have nothing else better to do, and you may only have the one computer, in which case you can update it however you want to, because if you screw anything up or there's consequences, they only affect you. If I screw it up because I'm too impatient and it gets delivered to a customer and then that customer calls me with a support call, then I have to stop the work I'm doing to go back to redo something I've already done. That ends up losing me money because I was making money, whatever I was doing, when the call came in. The customer confidence may be shattered that they're already having a problem. And the amount of time I'm spending to address the problem, I can't bill for that. And so if you get too much of that, there won't be enough money in the bank to pay the bill at the end of the month for all of the expenses to run. So like anybody else, if you pay rent and you pay utilities and you pay for groceries and you have car insurance and car maintenance and medical bills, you're running a small business just like me. And the question is, where does that money come in from that you're using to pay your bills? Is that something that's just automatically handed to you? Or is it based on you going to work and whether or not you work overtime or get a promotion? You know what I'm saying? So for me, because I'm self-employed, I have the ability to work more or less, to charge more for my work, to give myself a raise. And if I lose customers that say I'm too much money, but I'm still making the same amount of money for the customers who stay, then basically I've just freed up a bunch of time and I didn't lose any money. So good riddance to the customers who didn't want to pay. That frees me up for new customers who will. See what I'm getting at? But if I'm working for somebody else and then they have to give me a review, then I've got to meet certain expectations that the employer has of me. And if they keep their word and I keep my word and everything works like it should, I should get a raise, maybe a promotion. And then again, at the pay period, I can use that money then to pay my expenses. This is no different than anybody else, unless you were born as an heir to a family that's wealthy, or you still live at home and your parents pay your bills. To me, that's disgraceful. If you're an adult living at home, I would feel so much shame. I would be so ashamed of myself that I would work constantly and relentlessly every single day to get myself out of that situation because of my own personal pride. If they were able to do it, I am able to do it too. You're capable of doing whatever you believe in. And it doesn't mean you're going to do it overnight, but if you work at it every day, you will see it through and nobody can stop you. But if you've given up and you've accepted that you're just not capable, Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, either way, you're right. So I'm a big believer in that. You have to decide for yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about anything. And you will reap the rewards and you will reap the consequences. None of them will. So when other people who want to tell you their opinions are able to improve the quality of your life by paying your bills for you or helping you have a better life, then their opinions matter. But if they're just know-it-all couch quarterbacks that really don't know what they're talking about, you would be best served to ignore those people and to march to the beat of your own drummer that's right for you. And nobody will do that for you. The likelihood of anybody doing that for you is very slim. But each one of you can do it if you choose to. And many of you are already doing that right now. I expect most of you are. So it's very reasonable to understand the business mentality that I run and how similar it is to just not even having a job, but you still are working a job whether you realize it or not. Something's bringing the money in, and those bills that you have to get paid. And if you're the one paying them, then you're taking that responsibility. It'd be like me selling a computer but never delivering it, right? I got the money, but if I never deliver the computer, probably going to find myself out in the street. And likewise, if you get money from wherever you get it and you don't use that money to pay your bills, unless somebody else is paying your bills on your behalf, you'll probably find yourself out on the street. It's really not that different, you and I. Businesses have been affected by the slowdown in the economy. Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that. There's a lot of restaurants that have closed up, food industry, shrinkflation. Yeah, but I mean, our economy here in the United States and the history of it has been through this several times. I went through this in the 80s. It's temporary, so what? Not everything is solved with money. And I think it's a good time to reflect back on gratitude and spend some time and have some appreciation for just how good your life is right now, instead of being upset about the drug cutoff of consumerism being reduced and rationed out because of the costs of goods and how expensive things are. Consumerism isn't good for us. Not to be so indulgent and gluttonous as we've been in the United States and generally worldwide, that there's an entitlement now instead of an appreciation. And I think that nature has a way of balancing all this out, whether we like it or not. That's my theory. I mean, we're not going back to the 1920s era depression. That was pretty rough. And I'm glad I wasn't around for it, because from watching, documentaries on the Depression, and especially the companies that were around during the Depression, the companies that saw the Depression as an opportunity did well. So for example, Hershey did well during the Depression. Most companies did not. But any of those companies could have done what Hershey did. They just chose not to. So we have choices, and we can choose to be victims, or we can choose to play the cards we're dealt to the best of our ability, or you can choose to fold your hand and walk away from the table and not play. Whatever fits your personal preferences is up to you. But make no mistake, it's not just affecting you, but how you choose to deal with it, probably just you. All right, so if you don't like your choices, choose differently. And if you do like your choices, keep doing what you're doing. If it was raining outside and I had plans to be outside today, I'd make different plans. I wouldn't just lay in bed and say, well, there's no point in getting out of bed today. No, I don't allow outside influence to control my life. I will roll with the punches and go with the flow and take advantage of everything else everybody sees as a negative. I'll find a way to spin that and use it to my advantage. And it's an incredible superpower when you learn how to do it, because then nothing slows you down. Things happen unexpectedly, you handle it. You're fully capable if you choose to. That's your pep talk for today. All right, we'll check for updates one more time. I think maybe there's something else, I don't know. But you can see how painless that is. Click it, walk away. But do expect to have to do that with any new computer, whether it's a laptop, a mini PC, or something you built yourself. And then once all this is done, you could just allow it to auto-update in the background. And what you're doing is you're waiting for the cement to dry before you build your house on it. And you might be really anxious to start building that house, but if you start too soon and that cement hasn't set, it's all just going to fall back in, and it's not going to stay up. So, just have a little bit of patience and a little bit of pride in the quality of your own work to make sure that you're trying to do it right to the best of your ability, versus you're trying to win a race that once you reach the finish line and you've won, you pass out, go to the hospital, and don't recover. I don't think you won, in that scenario. If you're not around to enjoy it, if what you're building won't stay solid, if it just falls apart or constantly breaks, that just tells me you weren't paying enough attention. You didn't care enough about the details, and you don't have the pride and the quality of the work. You were more interested in doing it fast. I don't want a dentist like that. I don't want a mechanic like that. I sure as hell don't want a surgeon like that. In fact, I didn't even want somebody cooking my food like that. So if that's acceptable in your life, we'll agree to living our lives with different values, because I would rather be proud of something than just have a lot of money. There's a story how the sales of Fritos were declining. And this was back around the New Coke days, back in the 80s. And the CEO of Coca-Cola was watching sales of Fritos they keep going down. And he's like, what's happening to our Fritos sales? And nobody knows. Just a cultural event. People just aren't buying them anymore. Well, the CEO is not accepting that. It doesn't make any sense. With a little more digging, he finds out that the company found a cheap substitute for one of the ingredients in Fritos. And as such, they don't taste the same, and people, they buy it, and they go, oh, I don't like it, and they stop buying it. Once the CEO found out this was the problem, the CEO was just like, everybody stop what you're doing. Everybody stop. Listen to me. I'm the CEO of the company. You, all of you, put the Fritos recipe back the way it was now. Now, stop everything you're doing. Every minute we're losing millions of dollars. You put that back now, and so much as any of you change that in the future, you can just pack your things and get out. And then the famous quote that he said was, don't F with the Fritos. Google that, and you can read the whole story. I'm paraphrasing it. And yet companies today will continue to substitute quality ingredients, and they'll say, well, everybody else is doing it. But where's your pride? You think somebody like Gordon Ramsay would just start serving hot dogs because everybody else is doing it? Those would have to be some pretty special hot dogs, right? Well, everybody else, that man has way too much pride to serve you a hot dog. That ain't happening. He would never sink that low to his own values just because the hot dog's more profitable. And so we as consumers, we have a choice as to whether or not we vote for something with our money. And when a company does something you don't like, stop doing business with the company. Go without. There's nothing they make you need. Unless it's medical or medicine, things like that, you may not have much choice. But when it comes to restaurants wanting to charge you more and give you bad quality food, bad service, and now they're closing up because of the economy, you know, sometimes what can you do? If you're a restaurant owner and you refuse to give up your quality, you've got to raise your prices. And if people say, well, it's too expensive to eat there, you might have to close up your restaurant. On the other hand, if you say, well, we'll just serve smaller portions, but we'll keep the quality ingredients and we'll keep the same prices, then people go, well, it's not a good value, it's too expensive, and they stop eating at your restaurant. So if you say, well, we'll go to a third party for the source of the foods that we're using to cook our meals with, that's cheaper, and we'll keep the prices and the quantity the same, but the food is no longer good, people will stop eating at your restaurant. So your goal as a business owner is to figure the problem out. I promise you, it's solvable, and the answer is right in front of all of your faces. And if you're dumbfounded, just be glad you're not in business for yourself, because this is where the good businesses shine, and the crappy businesses that say, oh, you know, we're closing up a bunch of Wendy's and we're closing up a bunch of Pizza Huts, and yeah, and so you should, because they never should have been around to begin with. If the way they keep thinking they're going to make more money is by getting cheaper and cheaper ingredients, what you're doing is you're weaning people off of your product, but they don't want it anymore. Like if I wanted you to stop drinking alcohol, I would just make it taste worse and worse and worse and make sure you get sicker and sicker and keep raising the price and giving you less until such a time as you just don't want it anymore. You just don't even want it. And that's what these companies are voluntarily doing to themselves, all in the name of profit, which is clearly not sustainable. So they want to just wring it dry, take every drip out of it, and then discard it. That's capitalism, but it's not one that I agree with. But if it's theirs, they have every right to do it. But you think if anybody would know better and would be forward thinking about consequences, it'd be these, you know, MBA college, Ivory School graduates that are making these decisions. But it just seems to be money, 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 money today. I don't worry about it tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think when it's all said and done, quality is worth paying for. That's it. Anything else is a temporary profit you can make while you've got people fooled. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. At that point, now you got to blame the consumer. That's the way I see it. But there are solutions. You just have to think outside of the box and take advantage of it. But if Papa John's closes a bunch of restaurants or Pizza Hut closes a bunch, I don't care. I don't work for them. I don't have any investment in them. It doesn't affect my life one way or the other. All right, well, I don't think we need to sit here and wait for this to finish. Everything is working as it should. It's a very quiet unit. I would be concerned if, I was hearing it getting really loud with regards to heat issues. If you want, we can run Cinebench and Crystal Dismark on it off camera, and then maybe Sunday come back, just like we did a part 1 and part 2 on the original E3B. We could do the same thing here, but you have to understand what this is, right? You understand this isn't going to blow you away in performance or storage. It's not what it's designed for. It's an economy car, right? It's not going to blow you away on horsepower. It's going to be economical, cheap to buy, cheap to maintain, good on gas mileage. It's not a Ferrari. It's not supposed to be a Ferrari. It's not as finicky. It doesn't require constant maintenance and fawning over and constantly, being a diva. It's just going to work, and it's not going to break the bank. And if that's not good enough for you, then there's other options. And my goal here isn't to try and sell you one. I just want to introduce it to you so you're available. It's available and it's a choice. Whether that's a choice for you or maybe somebody that this would fit well for, just knowing it exists and what it's capable of and how much it costs is half the battle. Whether or not it benefits you or anybody that's where I hand it off. I appreciate the folks at Kamrui sending us the unit. As I mentioned, it was a little confusing at first. I'm like, we already did this. So if it's confusing for me, I imagine it would be confusing for the consumers to keep seeing last year's model for sale when it's not really last year's model anymore. It's been upgraded. And the price difference between last year and this year is $10. Given what everybody else is doing, that's pretty impressive. So unless you have any other specific questions about the unit, I'm going to go ahead and put our email address up on screen one more time if you want to reach out to us. We love hearing from you. There we go. Sable the cat will get right back to you. showcasecreate@gmail.com is how you can reach us. We love hearing from you guys. So if you have links of things that you want, you're asking, if what you're reading is real or how you can tell, or you want to share an experience with us that you've had, we'd love stuff like that. Sharing other people's videos, we're not really interested in. Sharing other people's experiences. Your friend has a story. We encourage your friend to email us, but we don't want to hear it secondhand. That's just gossip, and we have other things to do. But, if somebody wants help, regardless if they're a regular viewer, maybe they're a friend of yours, extend that email address to them and say, hey, you can write to this guy and he'll help you, and that's your part. That's it, and step out. And if they choose to follow up with that, great, and if they don't, that's fine too. You've done your part. All right. Again, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. Thank you for your contributions from both Mark Gaines and our friend Buster with your Amazon gift cards. And I think, did I see David Graham? Thank you for renewing your membership. He's now a member for 30 months. Thank you for all the members that enable this channel to continue to operate. Talk about economics. Advertising on YouTube doesn't pay for videos anymore. Those days are long since gone. YouTube revenue for advertising on this channel will get me about 2 tanks of gas a month. Maybe a little less. So I could not do this content being paid $100 a month. I couldn't do it. There's no way. It's through your support, through your memberships, that we're able to keep the lights on and spend so much time invested in this. Lately, things have been a bit slow in the industry with regards to any new innovations. So We're also dealing as a double whammy with a lack of any new products coming out. Really no new NASs I'm aware of. The Samsung Galaxy S26, again, is just a big nothing. It's like they took the S25, and they took the S25 and they went S26. I don't see a 5,000 milliamp battery for the last 5 or 6 generations. I mean, I don't get what's happening here, but it's no incentive for me to drop $500 with a trade-in just to get the exact same phone I've got now. Was where it wants to think for me, like it wants to offer AI assistance so I don't have to use my own brain. I find that insulting. Like, I'm too stupid to know how to put things on my own schedule. Would you like me to put that on your schedule for you? Oh, isn't this great? I guess if you like gout. I have a perfectly functioning brain. Why should I use it if I don't have to? I mean, if that's how you go through the world, I'm not sure you're using it now. But definitely not the right thing for me. Taking away more of my freedom and making me more dependent on technology to continue to make me dumber and dumber is nothing I'm going to pay for. That being said, I'm not excited about anything coming out with any product announcements regarding Wi-Fi routers, NAS devices, computers. We do have the new Intel chip, that Ultra 300 series. It's a mobile platform. We'll see if they start putting that on desktops. I think that's probably more financially feasible to see basically a mini PC, but to see companies like Dell and HP utilizing this Intel's mobile chip in desktops. That's rumor, but it makes sense. I could foresee that happening. AMD's got nothing going on. NVIDIA, their new computer coming out, the ARM-based one, could be quite compelling. And I think that takes us to the end of 2026. So unless somebody's working on something we don't know about, we have a few new mini PCs from Minisforum to look forward to. And there's no new video cards coming out, no other new CPUs that I'm aware of coming out. And other than what I mentioned, nothing new on Wi-Fi, networking, storage. Western Digital sold out of drives for the rest of the year. Other than what's in inventory, they're all gone. No real innovation coming out of there this year. No new innovation coming out with SSDs this year. So this is a good time to reflect and enjoy what we have and express gratitude for what we do have, and to we bought it to use it. Let's start using it, man. It's not holding you up. I think mentally it's a healthy thing to break us of this addiction that so many of us have. I don't think that's why it's happening, but I suppose if you want to put a positive spin on it, it's forcing you to do the right thing because you don't have a choice, which is find your gratitude or find another interest. That there's just too much of this that's gone on for too long, and the consumerism and greed and the gluttony is just over the top. So it's a good time to reevaluate what's important to us, really, and recenter ourselves and use this opportunity to really sort of take a step back and approach with a new perspective. And it may, for some people, be the end. They may say, I'm going to step away from it, and they may never come back. And, that's happened before with lots of other things in the past that were very trendy. In the meantime, businesses still need more computers than ever. Nothing on the business side has changed one bit. People still go to work. They still need computers to do their job. And if the computers cost a couple $100 more, the business doesn't care. It can't get in the way of making $1 million because they don't want to spend $200. So it hasn't gotten that bad. And for everybody else, we can enjoy the community. We can enjoy each other's builds. And as we see any opportunity to review things that are new products that, there could be some things in the works we don't know about, which is what I'm hoping. We will continue these broadcasts. I was catching up for years. I was always backlogged. There's no backlog. There's just nothing going on. So that's why we didn't have videos Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. There's just nothing to show you and nothing to talk about. However, if come Sunday, when we're scheduled for our next live video, If we don't have anything on the bench, we will still keep at a very minimum our Friday, Sunday, Monday schedule at the very least, because our members are what make that possible. Period. End of story. And if the members go, then that's probably the end of it. At least, maybe not permanently, but at least until things get better. So I'm hoping that, you know, we may end up just enjoying each other's company and sharing stories for the next few weeks. At the same time, I'm also hoping product arrive. We are expecting some stuff in March. So when in March? I don't know yet, but it's only a couple of things. It's not like the things we're expecting in March we could cover in 1 week, and then there's still 3 more weeks to deal with. So these are the challenges that I face here on this platform. And I appreciate everybody that supports me and joins me on this journey to see where it's going to go. So we're heading in a direction I have no idea, but I'm staying for the ride. And as long as you're staying too, we'll figure it out together. And it's temporary. The ride will eventually get us to a destination. I don't know when and I don't know where, but it's definitely moving. Thanks to you. Thanks, of course, to Mara, our channel administrator. She's the one who does our video thumbnails and does all of the links that you'll see in the descriptions below. For today's video, this product link from both the manufacturer and Amazon is there. And if you want to watch our video of the prior version of this from last March, the links for part 1 and part 2 are there in the video description as well. So feel free to check those out, especially if it's a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday and we've got nothing going on. It's a good time to go back and watch over 1,200 videos in our archive. There's plenty there to watch, averaging 2 to 3 hours a piece. We don't have enough time off to get caught up with all that. And thanks to each and every one of you for hanging out with me today. Again, especially our members in green. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back here on Sunday, 1 o'clock Phoenix time. Until then, bye for now.